Black History Month was first celebrated in the United Kingdom in October 1987 and was organised by Ade Sibo, who worked at the Greater London Council. The purpose was to encourage the positive teaching and development of the history and culture of Black people. October is supposed to be a month where we celebrate the achievements of Black people. October 2020 is very different. What I'm about to share with you in the next few minutes may be very uncomfortable for some of you. With all respects, I hope it is. David Adjaye, a British man, is one of the most talented and respected architects throughout the world. He has even designed a range of stunning chairs. His works include the Moscow School of Management and the Smithsonian Institute in America. One of his British designs was for the designer Oswald Boateng in Mayfair, London. Oswald Boateng, another British man, is a tailor whose suits are worn by the rich and famous. And this British author, Malorie Blackman, has had her most famous novel made into a TV series, Noughts and Crosses. Diane Abbott's parents were Jamaican members of the so-called Windrush generation. Her dad was a welder in a factory and her mother was a nurse. Diane studied at Cambridge University. She was the first elected Black woman in the House of Commons in 1987 and continues to be a Labour MP. Under Dr. Olukoshi's leadership, since 2016, Brampton School has seen a significant increase in Oxford and Cambridge offers. 98 in the past 2 years, which is more than most private schools. In fact, only Eton had more offers in 2019. For 3 years running, over 100 children have gotten straight A and A-star grades. Most of the children are Black or from other minority ethnic families. Many rely on free school meals. Almost 80% do not have English as a first language. The results achieved are staggering. 2020 is probably one of the most important years in Black history. The world has seen the brutal reality of racism. We have seen a disproportionate number of Black people dying from the coronavirus. We saw the horrific murder of George Floyd. In 8 minutes and 46 seconds, we saw his last breath forced out of him. During the pandemic, as well as dying in greater numbers, Black people were also more likely to be fined and policed for breaking lockdown rules than white people doing the exact same thing. Black Lives Matter protests around the world inspired a commitment from many individuals and companies to deal with racism, and I welcome that, but the struggle continues. The struggle is real. A year ago, on the 1st of October 2019, at the start of Black History Month, at my highly selective girls' school, I was given the silhouette on the left to use in the art project on identity. As she handed them out, the teacher said, "Well, most of you look like this." This was a project on identity, yet she chose to try to ignore mine. So, I selected my own instead. The teacher never spoke to me after that. Ask yourself why the art teacher did not care that my ethnicity is important to her art project on identity. During lockdown at an online school, in a lesson on Black Lives Matter, the teacher referred to Stephen Lawrence as a gang member. He was not. He was the perfect example of a hard-working A-level student. Stephen was simply waiting to catch the bus home on a school night and was viciously attacked and murdered by the gang of racists in the photo on the right. Ask yourself why the teacher would call Stephen Lawrence a gang member, but not the gang of thugs who attacked and killed him. When a teacher tells a class that if you are Black, you are more likely to join a gang, then the truth is that gangs are often associated with deprivation. The ethnicity of gang members reflects the ethnicity of the population living in that area. Gang members in Glasgow and Liverpool are over 90% predominantly white, whereas gang members in Manchester and London are predominantly black. Why would the teacher say that gang members are black when this is not entirely accurate? The same teacher described areas on the map that black people live in as ghettos. He also stated that black people live in tower blocks, places like Grenfell Tower. He did not speak of the fact that 40% of black people own their own home. Ask yourself why. During lessons about the slave trade, a teacher struggled to pronounce the name of the famous author Alada Equiano. And in the same lesson, when we were shown the image on the right of Benin in Africa during the 17th century, the class was invited to say what we thought it was like. Looking at the image, I said that I thought Benin was advanced, but the teacher questioned this. They did not question the other children's assumptions that it was dirty and grim. Yet, in 1974, the Guinness Book of Records found that Benin, which is now southern Nigeria, was the most advanced civilization in the world. Ask yourself why the teacher and students refused to believe that a place in Africa could possibly be advanced even though it clearly was. When your classmates believe that enslaved people benefited from the slave trade because some got to work as butlers and maids in a slave master's house, and because the enslaved were given food, I believe you'd ask yourself why. Edward Colston transported over 80,000 slaves from Africa. Around 19,000 died during the journey. He called these deaths wastage. Many were women and children. People in Bristol have been asking for many years for the statue to be taken down because it represents the brutal slave trade and is a constant reminder to Bristol's black people of the horrors that their ancestors endured. Yet, when you're the only person in your class who argues that the pulling down on the statue was the right thing to do, you have to ask yourself why the people are more upset about the monument being toppled than the thousands of people that the man enslaved and killed. All of these are incidents that I've experienced in the last 12 months. Yes, personally experienced. They aren't just stories I've heard off YouTube or heard from someone else. No, I've experienced all of these incidents firsthand. There's nothing extraordinary about me. I don't go looking out for racism. On the contrary, I've been in lockdown for 7 months. This is, well, you know who this is. Multiple award winner Stormzy had the door of his home kicked in by the police because his white neighbours had called the police to complain about a suspicious black man who had entered the premises. They told the police that they thought the man was burgling the exclusive London home, even though it was his, and he had used the key to get in. This is 25-year-old Alexandra Wilson, who has been a practicing barrister for 2 years. When she goes to court to represent her clients, she is frequently mistaken for a defendant. One day last month, she was questioned, stopped, and shouted at by 3 separate court staff and other lawyers, who assumed that she had no right to be in areas of the court that are for staff and lawyers. This is not okay. Black professionals should not have to justify their existence. This was not the first time that Miss Wilson had been discriminated against, and she has written a book about her experiences of racism and prejudice in the criminal justice system. I'm sure that all you Star Wars fans recognise John Boyega. Aside from playing Finn in the blockbuster movies, John is also the first male representative of the Jo Malone perfume brand, which is owned by Estee Lauder. A few weeks ago, John discovered that his image had been replaced with that of a non-black model in a commercial he had filmed. In January 2020, Vanessa Nakate, an African climate activist who had been a panelist on the Greta Thunberg at the World Economic Forum, was cut out of an image by the Associated Press Agency, which is one of the largest global news organizations. Vanessa said it was the first time she experienced racism and said, "You didn't just erase a photo, you erased a continent." Greta spoke up, saying it was unacceptable. Black history is not 31 days in October. Black people make history every day. But Black History Month is an opportunity to highlight our achievements and to draw attention to the continued discrimination that we suffer. I said at the start that some of you who watched this may have been uncomfortable. I hope that as you watched, you questioned yourself on how you can do better, how you can educate yourself, and how you can contribute to a better, more inclusive world through anti-racism. I would like more allies, people who stand with Black people in the struggle. We have seen so many wonderful examples of this, but we need more. I would also like to see schools taking equality more seriously. Simply saying that you believe in equality does not mean that you work for equality. Perhaps in the past you've been annoyed at the phrase Black Lives Matter and have replied with All Lives Matter. Maybe now you realise that saying Black Lives Matter does not mean that other lives do not matter. Of course they do. But all lives won't matter until Black lives do.